Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of our An Interview With series. Today we are joined by Bea.
Hiya.
Um, so thank you so much for being here, Bea. Today we're going to be talking about what it's like to be a woman in STEM and talk a little bit about the story and hopefully inspire some people. So Bea, thank you so much for being here today
No
and being
worries.
happy to talk
No
about your
pressure on
life.
the inspiration, hey?
I know. But I think, we've had conversations about this already, and I do think that, some of the things you say will really resonate with people, and it'll be not only inspiring for people that come from a similar background to you, but also people that, may be thinking of jumping into a STEM career and, looking to make that change. So, um, first of all, if you want to just introduce yourself and, tell us all a little bit about you.
Ooh, okay. So I'm B. Hi, nice to be here. It's short for Elizabeth, not Beatrice, but that's a whole other thing. So officially, I think I'm a software engineer now. So I've just changed my title from associate software engineer. And previously I was a junior engineer, so I'm actually a apprentice. I've made a switch from my degree, what I kind of trained in originally, and I was kind of looking around the job market, and actually there was this apprenticeship that caught my eye, and that's what I went for instead. So I've just had my last two interviews for my apprenticeship last week, actually. So waiting on the results for that. So fingers crossed by the time this is out,
Oh,
you
amazing.
know, if I didn't pass, please edit this bit out. But if I did, if you're hearing this, I've passed. I've done all right in it. But yeah, so I had my last two, and it's been 2 years of apprenticeship work. So apprenticeships look, well, for me, it's looked like 80% of the time I'm on job. I'm learning from project people. I have different allocations, so I've gone through the entire process with software. And then the 20% of the time is actually devoted to learning and development. So learning more software in terms of classroom skills, and then writing up for a portfolio that we then submit as well. And that's been 2 years. So it's, yeah, 2 years is quite a long time for this whole process to go through. But it's been a massive change. And I think actually writing
Yeah,
up in the portfolio means that you can kind of look back and reflect on how much you've learned and how much you've picked up. So it's a nice way of rounding it off, I think.
yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean, for a lot of people going from doing a degree for 3 or 4 years and then going into apprenticeship, which feels like another 2 years of studying, that can
Oh,
feel like,
yeah.
I don't know, a little bit overwhelming, especially when you come straight out of uni and you think, oh my gosh, I've finally done it. You've handed in your dissertation and you think, finally, I'm free. And then for some people, it's going back into an
It was
educational
a little
setting and you
bit
think, oh
because
gosh, here we go again.
I did my degree, and I didn't want to do a placement year because I just wanted to get out into the workplace. I didn't want to do a master's because I just wanted to get out into the workplace. And then transitioning over to an apprenticeship because it was something totally new and learning. And my whole thing is I transitioned to this career because I felt like I could learn a lot, and I have done. Um, and then it was kind of like it was more
Mm,
excitement at that point rather than learning more about the same thing, which I wasn't massively passionate about. I was all right at it. I was good at it. I got a 2-1, and it's respectable
hmm
degree, but it was just not something that I was ever really truly passionate about. So it didn't quite hit in the same place for me. It wasn't fulfilling the same things that my job now currently is, even though it is
Yeah,
arguably a lot more effort, a lot more work to kind of transition. It's been so much more worthwhile to me as a person, let alone just for
yeah.
my career.
Absolutely. And I think it would be good for you to just go over what that transitions look like because for most people, if you've done a marketing degree, your next step isn't I'm going to go and be a software engineer because they're,
Yeah.
they're so completely different. But was software engineering or was IT something you were always passionate about or was always in the background that you were interested
I've
in?
just
And,
realised I don't think I
how
introduced my
did this
degree
come
in my
about?
actual intro thing. Well, so for
No.
anyone listening who is listening to that, or I may record it, we don't know. I went through sixth form. I actually had to retake a year of sixth form because I was unwell, so I wasn't able to take my exams. And then I went and did a foundation degree in it's business management and marketing, but I did like law, economics, and entrepreneurship. So the law bit was great. Felt like I was Elwood from Legally Blonde, who is just my absolute icon. Um, and then I
Yeah.
moved on to 3 years of business management and marketing. So I actually have a BA, and then I came and interviewed for this job, and it's been a little bit bonkers actually to transition. Everyone kind of raises their eyebrows at me. So in terms of the transition, so
No,
I'd been
that's
looking
fine.
at lots of marketing jobs. This is going to be a long-winded answer. I'm real sorry. Was looking at lots of marketing jobs and lots of
No,
business
it's
jobs, and they
fine.
were kind of, yeah, they were all fine. Like it would be okay. But the thing about me is I hate not feeling like I'm developing as a person. I'd feel really stagnant in those jobs, even though they're fast paced and everything. For me, it just wasn't quite where I wanted to be. I could sort of feel it in my chest and my gut a little bit. There's a sort of feeling you get in your body when you know it's not quite right for you. Um, and learning to listen to that is a whole
Mhm.
skill unto itself. But so I was applying for all these jobs, and this is where we say
Mm.
my burnt toast moment was. So burnt toast moment is, you burn your toast first thing in the morning, and it means that you're 5 minutes later, but 5 minutes later means that you actually avoided an accident on the way or something else. It can change the outcome of your life. One little moment can change it. I think it's similar to the butterfly effect. And I was applying for this job, and it was this marketing job, and I
Yeah.
thought it was really cool. It was a really interesting company. They were doing sample marketing with ASOS and things like that, and I love ASOS, love that sort of thing. Like, who doesn't love getting a little free sample? I was like, great,
Yeah.
I'm going to make people as happy or just as happy,
Literally.
nearly as happy as the people who put the yellow stickers on things in Tesco. And I didn't get it. And I went all the way through the interview, and I interviewed really well. I was really confident. I knew my stuff. I prepared loads for it. This was like the job. This was kind of the job I really wanted. They kind of said, well, we don't think you want to do marketing. And I was chatting to a recruiter at the time. She's like, yeah, I don't know either. Like, I've got no idea where this feedback's coming from. And I said, no, not a clue. And I sat there and I went to the pub and I had a drink. And I don't recommend this usually, applying for jobs sort of slightly tipsy, but I did. I applied for the it was Altran at the time, but it's now Capgemini, and they gave me a call, and I was chatting away to the recruiter on the phone, and she said, "Oh, we've got she's going to love this. We've got another Bethany." She was because I was going by Beth at the time, and she's done really well in this. I was like, great, okay, that means there's a woman like me. She's even got the same name. Surely this is some sort of juju sign thing going on. Like, this was meant to be. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm going through this. I feel way out of my depth, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, it's fine. And then I get to the interview stage, and for one, they never told me it was a group interview. So I join up, and there's a bunch of other people. I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, this is a power move for sure. And they're all men. And I've not had so far I went to an all girls school, all girls sixth form, and then I went to uni, and my degree was pretty 50-50 split in terms of gender, possibly more women actually.
Yeah.
Um, and I was out there, I'm like, oh, I'm in the wrong room here. Like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. But I'm like, no, okay, we're gonna be brave about this. And they say,
Mm.
okay, who wants to introduce themselves? And I go, okay, hi, I'm B. I've got a business management marketing degree, because they say kind of what's your uni and stuff like that. Just finished this, start getting into HTML and a little bit Python in my spare time. And then everyone after me goes like, oh yeah, I'm doing mechanical engineering, I'm doing aerospace engineering, I'm doing like all this, and everyone's got engineering, and I'm like, oh no, like, this is bad. I think the final person goes and he's like, oh, I've got a doctorate in physics. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is awful. I'm in the wrong room. I'm going to fail drastically. This
Yeah.
is a week's worth of interviews. I've just got myself into the wrong end of it, like too much in the deep end. And actually it ends up being fine. Like, I cried in one of
Mhm.
my interviews, like mid-interview. This was, I got real stressed out. That was the one I scored lowest in, but in terms of scores, I think I got 5 out of 5 in everything, and then 4 out of 5 on the one that I cried in, which clearly did all right despite the tears, or
That's
maybe
still
because of the tears.
incredible.
Maybe they felt really bad. Well, we're here now, so
Mhm.
it's too late. But yes,
Maybe up
it
the score
was
a little bit.
full on, and that is absolutely what was to come. Joining the boot camp, everything was so overwhelming all of the time, and I felt like I knew nothing because I'd had no background, no experience. Luckily, I'm stubborn as anything, so I just keep going with a bit of a pig-headed attitude. But it is, they call it the learning curve, and it is the steepest learning curve I think you will ever have to go through. If you're looking to transition jobs, you do absolutely have to be aware that you are getting into it. So you have to kind of sit with that feeling in yourself. Are you going to be okay not knowing anything? And admitting that you don't know anything, I think, is the more powerful thing, because if you sit there and you pretend you know what you're doing, it's just going to create
Yeah,
a bit of a cluster for everyone else and yourself. You have to sit there and admit that you know nothing, and
absolutely.
accept that you're willing to learn. And that's, I think, where the passion and the kind of a little bit of resistance you have to keep pushing at it comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's nice that you, even though there was that feeling of self-doubt and that point where you were questioning yourself, like, what on earth am I
Oh,
doing? Like, is this a
exactly.
fever
Fever
dream?
dream
Why
is
have I
right.
put myself
Yeah.
in this situation? Like, yeah. Like, am I going to wake up yet? Like, this is a nightmare. I think also being surrounded by people that in your mind are more experienced than you, even though every sort of engineering and every scientific subject, it doesn't mean that they know how to
Mm,
code. It doesn't mean that they're going to be a good software engineer. I always think that someone's degree doesn't define how good they're going to be at a job, because most people are kind of pushed
yeah.
into a degree when they go through school. I don't know if you feel the same, but it was all about, just get to uni, get the degree, and then you can do whatever you like. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. So you kind of get to the end of your degree and you
Yeah.
think, I haven't stopped for a second to think about what I actually want to do with my life. So the fact that you're able to come across an apprenticeship in an area that, you were passionate about, I guess, outside of the degree at the time, is amazing. And I mean, from your perspective now, do you still feel like, as a woman in the room, are you still the minority in this situation? I mean, within software engineering as a trend, it tends to, be more male driven, and that is just a fact that
Yeah.
I see every day from speaking to people. But
So it is
how
definitely
do you
male
find
driven.
it?
There's a lot. My colleagues are some of the best people I've ever met, quite honestly. I'm incredibly lucky with them. They'll love that. They'll get a kick out of that if they hear this. Don't get too big of a head. Um, but yeah, no. So there, I think there was about one time in a work situation where it was equal split in genders in like a situation that wasn't a D&I. So, and that was about a year into me starting the job. I sat in a room and there were 3 women and 3 men. Unfortunately, I have to talk in the binary sense with this. But yeah, so it was, you are kind of always used to not only feeling like you're on the back foot because if you have got a different background, and most people are aware of it. Like, we know that we've got apprentices, we know to teach them, we know to sort of keep them in the loop with these sorts of things. But as an apprentice, it's very different. Even though you know everyone's here to help you, you feel like you are supposed to know everything. I think actually the fact that I came in with such a different background was useful, because it meant that I'm quite happy asking the dumb questions. I'm not going to sit there and pretend that I know what's going on, because I don't. This is the first time in my life that I've encountered some of this stuff. If we're talking requirements gathering, if we're talking like model-based systems
Mm,
engineering, people are confused hearing about these things. So was I. Like, I had no clue what these were. Um, and that's fine to sit there and say, I don't know, or do a quick Google or something. Um, so not only do you feel on the back foot because of your background, there is something about walking into a room and nobody looks like you or sounds like you or anything like that. And it's a bit, you do feel like you're like, it's like when you go into uni, you walk into the wrong lecture. You suddenly go, oh, not supposed to be here. Like, it's that sort of embarrassing
oh
moment
gosh,
almost.
absolutely terrifying. Like, and then you think, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
give
yeah.
up now,
It's
and I'm
just
gonna
you,
gonna go
yeah, and
back to bed. This
it
is
is
me
that
for the day.
automatic reaction of just backing down. Um, and you really you do have to force yourself sometimes, because it's really easy to just sort of sit there and be quiet and not want to draw any more attention to yourself. Um, I joined up and I went to, first
Mm,
time I was in the office, I went to reception. I said, oh, there's a book that's been put aside to me. Like, my name's Elizabeth. They were like, we know who you are, because people had been talking about me, partially with interest, because it's like, oh, new apprentice. It's always like interesting and nice, but also new apprentice. She's got a BA. This is
mm.
nothing like we've got before. And it was. I felt like all eyes were on me all the time. Um, and it is that sort of, part of it is going to be the new background, and part of it's going to be the gender and how I look as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of a combination of all of them, isn't it? Like, there's part where you think, okay, if I've come from a completely different background and they're looking to see if I can actually do this, like you do feel like you've got to prove yourself a little bit in that sense, which understandably from a commercial point of view, if you haven't got the background experience, then of course you're going to have to
Mm.
show them that actually you've been doing the work in the background and you can develop and learn. But when you think about it from the perspective of just being a woman, feeling like you do have to prove yourself a little bit more than some men do, I think that's an experience that quite a lot of women have. Whether it's something that actually they are the most experienced with, they could be the most experienced person in that room, but there's still that feeling that you have naturally that you feel you've got to prove yourself. Have you, with that sort of experience, have you um, ever kind of doubted yourself from that perspective and been like, I'm in a room full of people that, are very confident, even if they don't know what they're talking about, but I know what I'm talking about and I'm confident in what I'm talking about, but I don't know if I, still having that self doubt.
Oh,
Have you
literally
have
all
you
the
had
time.
much
Like, I'm
experience
sat
with
here
that?
on this
Well,
podcast thinking, this is an interview with me, right? And I'm sat here thinking, do I know what I'm talking about? It's about me. Who am I kidding? Um, so yeah, I
it's
mean, so
literally yes.
I'd not really heard of it before in my previous kind of background, but they call it imposter syndrome. It's basically this feeling that you're not good enough, and you kind of underestimate yourself. And I get that literally all the time. I come across very
Yeah,
confident, but I am actually incredibly not nervous so much, but like I don't have much faith in my abilities compared to other people. But I can sit there in a room of people and respect that rather than sort of be envious or think, oh, that should be me. I should be doing this, that, or the other. Or I should know everything about. I'm going to pick on systems engineering or like a particular language. I should know everything about this language or something. Comparison is the thief of joy. I can't sit there and be like, oh, I should be like this person who's got 15 years more experience than me. But actually, I've got skills in other areas that they've not quite honed yet. And I'll catch up. I'll get there. It's just I'm not there yet. And actually, I think again, it was about a year into my career that I kind of discovered the word yet. It was like, I don't know this yet. Like, I'll get there. It's just a matter of time. And by saying yet, it kind of put a little less pressure on myself
yeah,
rather than sitting in there and thinking, okay, I need to know everything about this one particular language and this particular process and this hardware and this model and all this other bits and bobs. It was like, okay, well, I don't know it yet. Write down the questions, ask the questions, find someone who can go bother with all of them. I will say one thing I really recommend actually was write down all your questions in one go. If you're sat there listening to like a presentation or somebody talk in a meeting, rather than interrupting the flow, sit and write them and then find a decent break and say, look, I've got a couple of questions, can I just rattle them off? That's something I really rate.
yeah, the imposter syndrome and feeling like being the woman in the room and
Yeah,
having doubts in yourself because of that. When you're surrounded by people that are like maybe possibly more experienced than you or are in
I
exactly the same boat
think
as you.
it's very
Um,
easy to sort of look at other people and think that's what I should be like and not embrace what you are actually like. I was sitting there comparing myself to,
mm,
somebody who's got a doctorate, somebody who's got like, he's a few years older than me and he's really experienced, he's kind of done all this stuff. But actually, I've got skills in other places that he wouldn't have been able to come around to it. And in sort of embracing that a little bit and not necessarily shouting about it, although I think women do need to do more in terms of we should get more comfortable bragging about ourselves, saying, I'm good at this. No, I feel like I could be good at this, or like kind of, no,
mhm,
actually, you are good at this and embrace that. But quiet little voice inside yourself will do a
mm,
lot more than a shout will. It will, if you can just have a little bit of faith in yourself, and I'm not saying like every part of you have faith in yourself every single second of every single day. Little bit of faith in yourself, little bit goes a long way in this sort of situation. Um, the other thing I think is it would be
yeah,
really easy to try and diminish myself, who I am, and my personality and my traits to fit in a little bit more. Um, in this industry, there's a lot of introverts. I am very extroverted. I could have minimized myself and not been as loud or as outgoing or anything like that, but that's not me. That's not who I am. And eventually, I would end up being really unhappy in the role. So I'm not going to try and prove myself by diminishing
mm,
myself. I'm going to prove myself by being the best that I can be in all areas that I can. And it might take 10 years for me to be as good a software
yeah.
engineer as someone else, but I'll get there. And it's, if I'm having a good time along the way, I'm not going to kill myself over it.
No, I think every person's timeline is so different, and people forget that like some people can just go through their degree, they get the job, and they can stay there for 20 years and they love it. But for other people, it's a real up and down journey of finding something that meets your needs. I guess just as a human being, you have that creative edge, you have the natural urge to want to develop and grow, and sometimes it can take a little bit of time to find that, especially as a grad. I mean, most people come out of uni. I came out of uni and I went into a job that just for the sake of it, you just go into something and start working, earning some money, and then you go, right, what do I actually want to be doing? And it just takes time. But I know that something you're really passionate about is inspiring young people, inspiring women to kind of reach out and go into STEM if it's something that they're passionate about and not to feel intimidated by it. And I know you're part of WISE, aren't you? So that's Women into Science and Engineering. Really, really wonderful organisation. I just think it'd be good if you talk a little bit about, what you guys do and
Sure.
what
So I sit
role
on
you
the
have
Wise Young
in that.
Professionals Board, which is a board of 12 young people, so it's under 30, who are sort of looking to make a difference in diversity, inclusion, and equality. I think I've messed up the order of that. Um, but essentially, so why is
No,
the
that's fine.
organisation tends to interact with companies on a larger scale? They also run a lot of workshops. So we've heard of, people my age now, an age I shall not reveal, who kind of were inspired by these events when they were younger and actually managed to go into it. But as the board, we are role models essentially, which is a really weird concept to sort of sit with, because it doesn't sit well with the imposter syndrome. Basically, you sit there as I'm not good enough for my job, and then go, but people are supposed to look up to me. But it's more sort of saying what's possible. When I was younger and I went through school, like I said, I went to an all-girls school, and it was a good school, it was solid, but they weren't necessarily brilliant with things like IT. They weren't great at encouraging things like IT when I was going through it. And we had a teacher who I just did not get on with. We did not gel. She did not like me because I was chatty. I did not like her because she set me work I did not like. I was 13 at the time, but and when it came to choosing my GCSE options, I didn't choose IT, even though I really liked it. I thought it was a really cool job. I thought things like hacking, like 13-year-old self, remember please, was like one of the coolest things. I thought kind of messing around with obviously ethical
Ethical
hacking.
hacking, ethical hacking.
But I thought it was basically like writing programs, all of that sort of stuff was super cool, and that was what I wanted to do. But kind of had this, I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to have that teacher with anymore in my GCSE. I don't want 2-3 years of that. So I didn't choose it, and she left. I was really gutted because I could have actually chosen it and not had her. But and then
Oh
we looked
no.
at getting computing on the A-level curriculum, and it was actually another girl in the year, and I'd signed up and everything, but we didn't quite manage enough people. It was a really small sixth form. Um, and yeah, so it kind of felt like there was
Mm.
always a little sort of bit of a blocker in the way. Um, and then yeah, so I went to uni, didn't even consider doing anything like programming, just because it hadn't come to mind. And if I'd had an organization, not that it hadn't come to mind, it was something that I self dismissed it. I looked at it, I went, no, 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 I couldn't do that. So I went and did business and marketing instead. And if I'd had an organization like White, if I'd been able to see these
Yeah.
sort of role models, I could have sort of, I mean, even the immediate, that phone call, and she mentioned, Beth, and I kind of sat there, I was like, great, okay, I could, she's done it before me, I can follow in her footsteps, sort of thing. Weirdly enough, she is now one of my closest friends in the world. She's brilliant. Which is, we can
Oh,
chat about that
amazing.
later. But it's yeah, having a role model, even in just that really small, like split second of a mention, it just gave me a relief that I can do this. So we've got our own podcast, Unfiltered STEM. We've got book club. We've got a few different social media channels that you can reach out to us on, and generally we just try and kind of we echo a lot about what it's like being a woman in STEM, because it's not easy. It's not guaranteed. There's always a bit of a fight going on in kind of whatever area you're in, even if it's unacknowledged. Um, but yes, you can find us on a lot of social medias, and we can do a lot of that. And we are trying to engage more with younger kids. So like I've got a little sister, she's 9. And she is the most curious kid in the world. She asks so many questions. And at times I think this is really annoying. I've come down to my parents the weekend. I can't be bothered, like I'm tired. And then I'm like, no, she's curious. She wants to know about the world. And it's sort of, I try and answer as much as possible. Um, and there are some, are there
Mm.
aliens? I don't know. I have to answer the best I can. But we try and engage with kids because we want them to be able to explore that curiosity and take them wherever they want to go. And it's not necessarily saying, my little sister's definitely going to become an engineer because she's asking all the right questions, but that should be a path that is open to her, and she should see it as a path that is open to her.
Absolutely. It's about just having the option there in front of you
Yeah.
and knowing that that is a valid option, rather than seeing people do things like I was never good at science in school. Maths wasn't really my forte either. I was always better at kind of the more creative subjects. And so for me, the reason I didn't consider doing IT or anything like that is because it didn't interest me and it wasn't the direction I wanted to go in, and I was very comfortable with that. But for some people, it is a confidence thing, and if you don't see people that are like you doing those jobs, it's, how on earth are they going to imagine themselves or picture themselves in that position themselves? Because you can't, if I was looking at someone that was nothing like me doing a science role, I'm not going to look at them and resonate. I'm not going to
it's
think, oh,
it's
I could do
really
that, because I think, well,
it's
they're
really
nothing
hard to
like me and I'm nothing
relate to
like them.
someone if you can't, if or to something if you can't see yourself in it. Um, and we need to have role models of all sorts of different walks of life, whether that's, you know, old, young, middle-aged, men, women, other, everything. Like it needs to be obvious, and it needs to be obvious that everyone is welcomed, because it's not always apparent. And actually, if it's a bit of a closed doors, you don't know. You know, we're getting engineering courses where you've got like 100 men and like 2 women, and it's no wonder they find it kind of difficult, because it's just, again, it's always feeling like you've got to prove yourself every time you walk in the room. um Oh, I was going to say
Mm,
something. I feel like going back to your point, what you were saying about you were always better at the creative. I feel like there's a bit of a split. It's like you're either a science person or you're a creative person. There's no real acknowledgement that actually the two can intersect. And you have to think creatively in scientific roles, and you have to
yeah.
think scientifically in creative roles sometimes. You have to use a bit of both, and it's a little bit unfair to say it's one or the other. I always find that a little bit, it doesn't ever sit right with
Mm.
me.
Maybe that's something that's like natural for me to think. Maybe as a woman, I've been like, okay, I'm good at the soft skills. I'm good at the people skills, you know, and that creative side of me, and that kind of, that's all natural to me. So that feels like the direction I should go in. And don't get me wrong, like I'm very happy where I am,
Yeah.
and I'm happy with every decision I've made, and I think I'm very confident in what I'm doing. But I feel like there's always a part of you that's like, well, what if maybe my teachers were a little bit better in school? Like, what if I actually did feel a little bit more inspired, and felt like I could apply myself more to those subjects? Is that something that then I would have been interested in because I was better at it, um but yeah, as you say, I think it's just really important to be able to have those role models, and that starts in school. And you can't always, you can't guarantee what sort of teacher you're going to have, if that teacher is going to be the most inspiring person, or if they're not, if you're not going to get on with them, if like most teachers don't
Because we
like the
are
chatty kids
disruptive,
because it
yes.
just takes up
And
their
I
time.
fully acknowledge my part in
You're
this. I would
disruptive,
apologize to
they've
whoever
got
I ever
stuff
met
to
her
do.
again. Yeah, no, it's not only, I mean, it's, yes, it's a good thing having role models for young kids. I think it's also just as important to have role models as an adult, because I don't think you're restricted to one different walk of life. I'm a terrible artist. I can't draw to save my life, but I might in 20 years time decide actually all I want to do is paint, you know. And that should be something that I am able to switch over and do, because it's, I am not on this planet for all that long, realistically. If I'm lucky, I've got 70 years, right? Maybe a little bit longer, hopefully a bit longer. I'm not going to sit there and be restricted by my role. If I was really passionate, if I had that feeling in my chest again and I wanted to kind of go off and look at something else and enjoy something else, obviously start off as a hobby, I'd always recommend. I wouldn't say drop your whole career for a complete like rogue choice, but
No.
if it's something you truly feel like you're going to be happier there than you are now, think about it for a little bit. But actually it's worth pursuing, it's worth having. There's a lot of avenues open up. So not only do we do like apprenticeships out of uni, but there's also a lot of mid-career switches, so people who've transitioned their career, same as me, just a little bit later on in life. um and I always think you need role models in kind of every walk of life, in everything.
Which I think is why this conversation is important, because as much as you, like, throughout life, you're told that you're being a role model for those people that are younger than you, and like that's fine, that's a natural thing that most people have to go through. But I think when people come out of uni, or when they've finished studying anything, and they think, I've just studied all the wrong things, I didn't make the right decisions when I was younger, which I will note is quite
Oh
ridiculous,
yeah.
that at the age of 14, 15, we're made to decide what we want to do with the rest of our lives. But we move on. I just think, being able to see someone that has gone from such a different degree and such a different idea of what they wanted to do with their lives, and then change that and have the opportunity to do that, and a company actually take that chance. And I think that that's the next point I wanted to touch on. From a client and business point of view, what would you say to those clients that maybe are always looking at, they need to have a degree in the relevant area? For some roles, there is technical knowledge that people need to have, and that's understandable in certain industries. But in others, what would you say to clients and businesses, in order to take a chance on someone that is actually transitioning, and their passion actually overrides
I
their
mean,
technical
so we've
experience?
spoken about, I went through my degree and it was fine, it was all right, but then this is something I found a real passion for. And you can get someone, let's say, if I went for a marketing role, they could get me who's fine about marketing, kind of ambivalent, like it's fine, it's just not my raison d'etre. And it's you could have me, and I've got the background, and I've got decent enough marks, I've got a 2-1, it's nothing to sniff at. Or you could get someone who's transitioned from a completely different role, really passionate about it, they love that job, that's what they want to do the best at. Of course you're going to get better results. You might have to train them, but actually I always think that's an opportunity. If you've got a marketing department and you trust that your marketing department's solid, you could then you can shape them, you can train them, and it on the job training is always going to be better than, or I shouldn't say always, but I think in this sort of situation it's going to be better than classroom training. And having that passion is really important. If you had two employees between you and one kind of wanted the job and
Mm.
one had more passion for it and they were exactly the same, you'd of course hire the passionate one. And I think it's worth taking a chance. There's millions of different ways to get apprenticeships now, government funding, all the rest of it. I don't think there's any reason not to. And the other thing is they are brilliant for diversity and inclusion. And diversity and inclusion is brilliant for businesses generally. It's a knock-on effect, but you are going to get people from different walks of life. Because, like I said, that's just one
Mm.
example. I had really, excuse me, there is some background noise going on. I had really quite forward-thinking parents, and for the large part teachers, who were all very pro women, very much like the world is my oyster. We kind of didn't really discuss a glass ceiling until I probably got into probably got to uni. It wasn't really There wasn't any acknowledgement, because to them it was like, yeah, okay, you can do whatever you want to do and we will support you. But if I was stuck and I couldn't quite go down the career path that I wanted to initially, imagine what all sorts of other people are like. So yeah, it's great for diversity and inclusion. It's great for kind of adding people who are really passionate. And also I think it's good for just generally, it's kind of nice to be in an office where everyone's a little bit different. If you had everyone, say for my job, the only wanted people they have to have comp sci, have to be a first, da 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 da, you're just going to get exactly the same person or type of person all the way through. And I think it adds a bit more interest if you've got a bit of a mixed bag. And we also ask questions. Apprentices or career switchers will ask a lot of questions that you wouldn't think of, because they're looking at it from a completely different perspective. Sorry, stumbled on that one there.
But I think the point you had about having lots of different ideas is so important, because everyone that comes from different backgrounds is going to look at things in a very different way. And, a lot of the time, asking those questions is actually how things develop and progress further. If no one's asking the right questions, you're never going to get to the right point that you want to be at with something, even if it's a project
Yeah.
where everyone's really confident on the topic, they know what work they've got to do. But the second you come in and you could ask something that you think is quite a simple question, like, oh, well, what about this? And they
Yeah.
might go, actually, I've never considered that before, and that can lead to something amazing. So yeah, having people with different knowledge and different skills is something that is vital, I think, in every business, and that goes beyond just kind of IT positions. It's in every role possible. Having people that have different mindsets, different educational backgrounds, different just people that are so diverse and come from different places means that they think about things so differently. And I guess from that candidate point of view, then obviously the candidates I speak to, there's a lot of people, we've talked about grads quite a lot, but there are a lot of people that, have been doing the same job for 5, 10, 15 years. And they've gone, do you know what, this is not what I'm passionate about. And they're taking that huge step, and they've done the career switch, and they've done, studying and things like that. What would you say to those people to, I don't know, as a
Ooh.
motivator to make that jump and
As
to
a
be confident with it?
motivator, like finite fact, I work for Capgemini, that's my current employer. I'm actually contracted out to another company. This company only hires grads with a comp sci degree at a first. They will not look at CVs that are not a first comp sci. And I'm working for them with my 2-1 BA with business management marketing. I think it's everything's possible, like absolutely the world's your oyster. You just there's a lot of determination you need to have. And there are going to be, there are days I don't like my job. There are days that I want to bash my head on the keyboard. There are going to be days where you sit there and wonder, this is what I thought my dream job was going to be? And then there's the next week you figure out what the bug is in your code, or you figure out the problem you're having, and you're like, yes, this was exactly what my dream job is. Um, and yeah, so remember the motivation, remember your passion, and you will need a bit of determination and possibly a little bit of pixie dust as well. There is a lot you have to do. I'm not saying it's going to be easy at
Oh
all.
yeah.
Finding finding people who support you, so not only friends, family outside of work, but also in work. if you have people you can kind of chat to, you can relate to. Different I mean, role models are good for this sort of thing because you can kind of see them there. You look up to them, right? But they look up to someone else as well, and it follows. It always goes through. So finding your people is really important. But yeah, you do get there. You do really well. I know so many people who are apprentices, and you wouldn't know it looking at them, or people who switch their careers, and you wouldn't know it looking at them. But they follow their passions, and that's really, really brave, and that's really important. Because the alternative actually
Yeah.
isn't quite as fulfilling. You might still be happy, but could you be happier?
Yeah, and I think what you're saying earlier, like, you're not on Earth forever. You're not, life can be so short, so why not take that jump and do what you're passionate about? As you're saying, it's not about, just quitting your job tomorrow and,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I'm not.
having no
Please,
background
no
training
one
or
come for
interest
me and
or
blame
anything
me
and
for
just trying
that.
to pick
I'm not
something
going to be
new.
held culpable for that.
No.
Yeah,
It's about making calculated decisions based on, the things that you're really passionate about. It's looking at what your
yeah,
options are and knowing that there is more than one option, because I know the client you're talking about, and you're absolutely right. They take the top of the top,
yeah,
the best grads you could find, the most intelligent people, and that's absolutely fine. And there are people out there that are like that, and that they are so lucky that they get to just kind of walk into that situation, obviously through all their hard work and doing the finding the right degree and getting lucky in that sense that everything's worked out for them in the short term. But actually, there are other routes, because a lot of clients or companies that people would love to work for and they dream of working for work with other businesses and contract through them, like you say. So even if you're not, you can't get directly into that place straight away, there's always a route round it, and there's always a way to find out, find another way to get into that
yeah.
industry and another way to get into
So
that
I've just
sort of
quickly
role.
Googled it. There's a quote from Oscar Wilde that says, "If you know what you want to be, then you inevitably become it. That is your punishment. But if you never know, then you can be anything." And I think that's sort of a little bit poignant for me. Is yes, okay, I could have chosen that path and I could have got on that path, but actually, the route that I went into it has led me to become a completely different engineer now. It's given me completely different experiences. I ask completely different questions. I know completely different things. And actually, I think that makes me a better person all round. And I'm not saying if you know exactly what you want to be, that's your curse or whatever, but it means that you get a bit more opportunity to explore what you want to be. So I don't think there's anything wrong with not knowing at 12, not knowing at 20, not knowing at 50. There's nothing wrong with that because you get to explore all of it and you find what makes you happy. And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. It's being okay with the unknown, I think, is the most important thing. You could start a new role and think, okay, I'm just going to see how this goes. And I think that's the most important thing, to not be set on absolutely everything, to have a path that you want to go on, but be okay with it if
yeah, I
there's a
think
quick
if you're
diversion
learning
before you get
something
back on
new
it.
and it's adding something to your
Um,
life, there's nothing wrong with it at all. As long as it doesn't hurt anyone. Again, don't I've got to make a lot of caveats
yeah.
here, just in case I get blamed for things.
Literally. Um, but yeah, and I think finally, we've been discussing what it's like being a woman in this sort of industry. Um, what would you? I think we talked about the fact women can be just as skilled and just as intelligent, have just exactly the same skill set as any man or any other person. What would you say to businesses that are looking to increase their
Ooh.
diversity and inclusion and make sure there's more women in the workplace?
So, I mean,
Why is
diversity
it
and
so
inclusion, you
important?
can look up, you can do a Google yourself, and there's a million different studies about how it increases productivity, it increases like the company well-being generally. It is really good for businesses, just from a business clinical point of view. I think, like I said, diversity makes it much more interesting place, makes it a much better place. You get a lot more perspectives and a lot more knowledge that you wouldn't originally. I think a little bit with hiring women, especially, or hiring anyone who's any barriers, people of color, you know, anyone who's experienced anything like homophobia, transphobia, etc. All of these things, it kind of means you've got a bit more grit to you because you've had to kind of face the worst that the world has to offer sometimes. And I think it kind of means that you have a bit more determination. Um, I would say to businesses that want to hire more women, more people of color, and basically increase the diversity, be seen doing well. Don't just do your basic lip service. We do this. Sign up to places like Wise. take on board their training, educate your employees, educate yourselves, go to careers fairs and talk about your opportunities for women, offer scholarships, offer apprentices. I'm big on offering apprentices because I think they are so good for diversity in ways that you wouldn't get, because you get people who have, yes, they've done the kind of a wiggly walk to where you are, but they've got there, and who knows what they could have picked up along the way. Evaluate them, at least give them that opportunity at least. Because I'm really glad someone did for me. If I hadn't been given that opportunity, the person who maybe took pity on me in that interview when I was crying, but I'm here now and I'm a good engineer and I'm good at my job. And it's something I really value, and I bring value to the company and they bring value to me. So yeah, things like apprenticeships. Wise is really good. That sounds like a proper shout out, but I do think they are really good. I would recommend them.
No,
They do
shout
some really
out.
great
They're
work.
incredible.
And yeah, be seen to be doing well, and not just the basic. Actually go down to the roots. Education is important, and visibility. Having your visible role models. If you're getting to a point where maybe you've got women, they're only getting up to a sort of mid-grade in your company and they're stopping, why are they hitting the concrete ceiling? What's happening there? Investigate it. Be really honest. Admit that you can see there's an issue and we're trying to work on it. Because I think kind of the worst thing that companies do is keep things under wraps. Very quietly announce their equal pay report or something and not do anything about it. Or only do it once a year. Just if they're kind of showing that it's not important, it's not a company I'm interested in going to see. It's not a company I'd be interested in working with or anything like that.
Oh, well, thank you so much for talking us through your whole life story, basically. I feel bad because I've literally asked you to go through every area of your life, but I really do think it's good for people to hear, people that have taken a slightly different route to get to where they are in their career, because most people, like I say, have seen that straight from uni into your dream job and that's it, life's then just perfect. But it's so nice to see someone who's so genuinely happy and is confident in what they're doing, despite the fact that you've gone into this job and gone, I have no idea what I'm doing, and that's okay. One of the biggest things you said, and I think it links back to clients as well, saying you don't know, like just, it's admitting the fact that you can make mistakes and that you are new to this and that you're
It's an
adapting, I
underrated
think is one
skill
of
for
the most
sure.
important things. Um, Absolutely. Just admit it, you don't know.
As long
I
as
say it all the time, to be
you
honest.
should also feel comfortable saying you don't know. And if you're in an environment where you don't feel comfortable, then maybe that environment's not for you. There
Got
is one
think.
little story I wanted to put in because I just remembered it's kind of important.
Yeah,
Basically,
of
my
course.
mum, she had me when she was quite young. She had me at 20 and she had my little sibling at 24. And she was a stay-at-home mum. Dad was in the army for a little bit and then was working. And then with childcare costs, I mean, who can afford to have two parents working these days? It's mental. She always wanted to be,
Mm.
she was always really interested in the environment. She actually went and studied and she did, dad and her worked it out and they worked out the finances. And she was able to go to uni and went back to uni as a mature student. And I was at my mum's 30th birthday party, as were some of her uni friends who were like 20s. It was a really interesting time. But like I would go with her to uni, which ended up becoming my uni eventually. It was kind of an airy kind of walking through, and I'm like, I remember this when I was a lot shorter. But watching her, it was really difficult because
Yeah.
she was there at like 4 a.m. and then coming back home, like studying at 4 a.m. and then coming back home and taking me on the school run and then eventually getting some sleep. And it was really difficult on her, and it was a big decision that they made as a couple together. But now my mum's really happy in her and bro, and she can imagine doing anything else, and that's what she's happy with, that's what she's content with. And that was a huge step, two young kids, and just going into choosing to go into science, knowing that it was really difficult, and knowing it was back in the noughties, so it wasn't amazing at the time. But yeah, that was also really inspirational to kind of watch
Mm.
that go through and have her as a role model, have her as my role model. And I'm sure she has role models that she looks up to too.
As you say, it kind of just
Yeah.
keeps going, doesn't it? Everyone has someone that they've looked up to, so you just got to try and be that person as much as you
Yeah.
find that person that you want to be inspired by. That's such a nice story. I think seeing someone do it in a not an unnatural situation, but I guess not the
Yeah.
standard situation you see someone going to uni in. Especially for women that have children, it's so important to remember that just because you've
Yeah.
had kids doesn't mean your life stops. you know, you have your life, you know, you're a
Oh
mum
yeah,
and you're still your
my
own
mum
person
is,
and you can
well,
still
she's
have your
mum,
own dreams.
my mama, and she's also, yeah, like amazingly, I think she's a principal consultant in her field. She's like mad important, really knows her
Oh,
stuff, like, yeah, all this sort of stuff.
yeah.
And yeah, and it's the fact that she was a homemaker to start with, and that's a brilliant job. It just wasn't where she wanted to finish. It wasn't where she wanted to be. It wasn't her passion, I think. As much as she loves us, I think I asked too many questions. I think that's maybe
Yeah.
what it was. Just drove her a little bit insane.
Yeah, she was like, I don't want to ask, I don't want to hear
Yeah.
any more questions. I want to be asking them
God be, no,
myself
I
to other
don't know if
people.
there's aliens. Leave me alone.
Oh dear. Well, that I think that's such a lovely story, and it's nice that you've seen it happen
Yeah,
yourself, and now you've done it yourself. It's like you've copied
exactly.
it just in a slightly different way that's fit, you know, where you want to be. Um, but yeah, B, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation. We've had like smaller chats like this before, and I've just thought, wow, like other people need to hear this, because it is so inspiring, and you need to remember that because as much as you've got that imposter syndrome, you're
I'm
like, oh
sat
my
here.
goodness,
I was
why am
sat
I
here
doing
going,
a
what am
podcast
I
about
doing? I
myself?
was really nervous
Like,
about this, but no, it's just been a nice chat.
no, it's super important. But yeah, thank you so
Thank you for
much.
having me.
And yeah, we'll no, no problem. I think it will be some really great insight for people, and yeah, as I
You're
say,
welcome.
really, really inspiring. So thank you.